All right, good evening, everyone. It is 6:30 on Tuesday, October the 25th. So we'll officially call this meeting to order. Just naming, I'm wearing a mask this evening, and so if for any reason you can't understand me, I tend to mumble anyway, just please let me know. So welcome, everyone. We'll start as always with our flag salute. And all right, so we'll do a quick roll call, starting on the right side.
Yeah, Director Bullock's not here too.
Oh, general representative.
Charlie Hoover, they, them, District 1.
Edna Morris, District 4.
Dave Larson, District 5.
Thank you, and welcome to all of our guests who are here in person and online. So Dr. Morris, if you could kick us off with our welcome message and then acknowledgements.
We have our agreements, which is to stay engaged, experience discomfort and be vulnerable, speak the truth and expect and accept non-closure. And we in the Tukwila School District acknowledge that the land where we teach, collaborate, learn, and play is the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and Muckleshoot people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish and Muckleshoot tribes. As a public school district, we have the responsibility for the stewardship of this land, and we recognize the Duwamish and Muckleshoot people who have been living and working here since time immemorial.
All right, so we'll move to our approval of tonight's agenda. Accept a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, it stands approved. All right, so we'll now move to our first opportunity for public comment. There are multiple ways to give public comment. I understand we received no written public comment today. So if you are joining us virtually and would like to offer public comment, you can do so by raising your hand or typing your name into the chat. And then we have one person in person to offer public comment as well. Do we have any sort of, does it matter where we start, virtual or in person? Doesn't? Okay. So I see one virtual and one in person. So we'll begin with Angela Meyer.
Good evening. My name is Angela Meyer, and I am the office manager at Cascade View. I was really hoping I wouldn't need to make an understatement, but here I am. Once again, my principal, Dr. Tanisha Primstad, is being painted in a negative light. There seems to be a lot of talk amongst the staff at Cascade View about student discipline this year. What I can say is that we take discipline of any sort very seriously and do not make decisions lightly. Our administrators in the front office take confidentiality very seriously and do not talk about the outcome of discipline with anyone that is not directly affected by our decisions. I believe because outcomes have not been discussed with staff, this has caused rumors and negative connotations about Dr. Primstad to once again start running rampant, and I am tired of it. Not everything that happens is everyone's business, and we are not going to go around telling all staff what happened on this day or that day. It's none of their business. What I would like to see is a little more support from you, Dr. Herman. Dr. Primstad needs the support of her boss, and when I see her break down, like I have many times, it is frustrating and hurtful for me to see her like that. She is a human being with feelings and emotions, and she needs to have that support from you when she's dealing with this type of, sorry, there's no other word I can say, but crap from our staff. that really don't care about the facts of situations, but rather just the juicy details. I've heard the staff talk about students in the hallways, in the staff lounge, and it's horrible. These are kids that deserve a lot more than to be talked about negatively, and Dr. Frimstad deserves a lot more than to keep getting painted in this negative light. I am asking you, Dr. Herndon, to please support Dr. Frimstad and not help feed the false narrative that is once again being spread about her. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Meyer. And then online, we have Dr. Frimstad. Perfect.
Hello, Board of Directors. Good evening, Dr. Herndon. Good evening, everyone. I'm gonna make this statement, and it is gonna be something that I'm just gonna speak from my heart. So hi, I'm Dr. Frimstad, the principal at Cascade View Elementary. And I would like to say that I truly believe in the work of our district, and I am excited about our strategic plan when we say excellence for all. If you know me, I am smiling, I am giddy, I love our kids, I love our community, and that's just who I am as a person. And as I said, I'm going to speak from the heart for this statement. I have staff members that come and talk to me, and I appreciate them. And I've been sitting with this question and reflection of how do I continually support them and speak for them? And I sit in silence on what's going on. And so with that, what I would like to say is that I am wondering as a district, when we look at our hiring and retention, how are we truly looking at being authentic and creating those sustaining integral relationships with all of our staff? I think about some of my experiences in this district. I've been told that I was not white enough for Tukwila School District. I've been greeted by being asked what my credentials are. I am continually having to prove myself and my credentials. And I understand as a leader, there are questions people have, but are these the right questions? And are these questions based on a race and equity lens? It concerns me with these ongoing statements about me and my character and my decisions. These statements, they are not true, they're unfair, and they're defamatory. And as much as I would like to every day dismiss them, it is hard because I think about our kids and their voices. I think about our learning community and the needs. I know for me, there's not been accountability for the actions and words that have been defaming to my character. I know there is additional communication that needs to be shared to share and show the true findings. And I will make this statement. It's not an easy statement to make, but I have and continue to be targeted because I am an educated young Black woman. This is not a random statement. There are multiple witnesses and documentation to support the words I have spoken. I have some amazing staff members that speak and support and motivate me. There are teachers and our ESPs and our families and our kids. And what I'm saying is, what are we doing as a district to make sure that we see that through line, to make sure that even when those experiences happen, that we are being real? And I understand speaking here tonight could cause some confusion for some, but I really would love to say that I take the CEE data seriously. And when our staff say they want to have the conversations to solve problems, they want to be more involved, they want more transparency, I say yes. I am there, I'm all in, I'm available through Zoom, in-person meetings. And I can say over these 5 years, I have seen an amazing shift this year from the staff at Cascade View. And I want you all to know that even though I'm making this statement, I have and I always will center our amazing students, our amazing families, our amazing learning communities. Our staff work hard at Cascade View, and I appreciate each and every person that walks in our door that makes us better in who we are as people. And I think the last part, as I said, I'm sharing from my heart. I tell my staff all the time, self-care is the best care. And I don't always self-care. Many of you know that because I want the best for our learning community. But the one thing I say is we are something outside of being educators. And I tell the staff that a lot. And so I'm asking and I'm showing and I'm telling the board and I'm being transparent. Yes, I am a principal at Cascade View. And I love it. And I am so proud to be the principal at Cascade View, but I'm also a mother. but I'm a human being too. And sometimes when these statements and things are said, it is hurtful because I am doing the best I can with the tools and resources that I have asked for and that I have received. And by no way is this a statement of concession or defeat. This is a statement of saying, as a district, we partner and we have those true, transparent conversations, especially with our staff of color, to make sure that the supports are there and that the staff realize that sometimes enough is enough because we are about these kids, we are about our parents, and we are about one another. Once again, I love what I do. I love what I do. But I have concerns on what are we doing to make sure that we are supporting everyone in our district. Thank you for this time, Board of Directors and Dr. Herndon.
Dr. Frenstead, thank you so much for your statement and for saying everything. All right, are there any other public comments online? Let's see. Okay, all right, so we will move on now to the reports. I will do them correctly this time. We're gonna start, I'm just checking it, is Mr. Fiorito here, for chance. Not quite yet, okay. Perfect. When he gets on later on, we'll circle back. Thanks.
Yes, hi, my name's Dennis. Again, I'm the student representative for the school board. One of the reports I need to talk about, let's see. At Foster High School, there's an ESSC, which is Environmental Science Studies Club. Right now, they're meeting and they're thinking of creating a learning series about Tukwela's nature history for the Tukwela Community Center, since we know that the center is, less funded this year. So that's something that we're looking towards doing and leading some workshops with, the community around environmental science and nature to just help the community center. And last Friday, there was a heat mitigation focus group for youth specifically. So we handpicked some high school students to talk about heat mitigation because it's been really hot recently. King County has been talking with now we're looking at youth opinions and youth input. So they're going to take that input and they're going to work towards the heat mitigation strategy plan and develop it sometimes in the next few years.
Sorry, Dennis, what kind of mitigation? I didn't-
Heat mitigation strategy.
Oh, heat mitigation,
Yeah.
okay, got it.
And then there's the PSAT that I took today, which is an experience. It was 4 hours long. I do think it was definitely, personally, I felt like I wasn't prepared for it, which I also talked to some of my peers. And then a consensus that I noticed really common was that most of us didn't feel like we were prepared well for the PSAT. And some of them kind of gave up throughout and they felt a little bit resentful because the school did not prepare them well for that. And it was kind of last minute too, like two months, less than 2 months into the school year. So one of the problems is that we didn't feel like we were being prepared enough, especially for these types of tests that need preparing. So if it is, I think it should be important to take into consideration like these state tests and these national tests that are really important, that we prepare our students really well for the upcoming SATs and PSATs in the future.
When you say prepare, do you mean like you feel like the content or just the kind of the experience of doing a test or?
I think, yeah, I'm talking about both of those things. So the content, which is definitely a big thing. A lot of the students, they didn't even know what they were testing on. Like on the day of PSAT, they realized that, oh, we have to do reading test, a writing test, and then math without calculator, with calculator. On the day of, that's when they know, and it's a 4-hour long test.
Okay, so it's kind of the whole mechanics around, what's being
And how
tested
it
and how it's gonna work and, okay.
And definitely some practice taking the test because it is very long, it's 4 hours, but if you think about it, there's not enough time for each of these tests because you have to go very fast at a much faster level. So I think preparing these students to kind of get working on what the PSAT is and preparing of how to do it would be a really good way. And I don't know if classroom instruction might help for that. So we could use some type of advisory to do something like that, or if there are other classes like say English or math that you could incorporate some parts of PSAT practice into, because I know now that it's not required, but it was required this year for all the students, I believe that is right, or am I wrong? It was, okay, yeah, so the SAT was required for all the students. So if it is required, I think it should be important that we help prepare them, especially during the school year and throughout.
Just about the requirement component, is that like something that would be in question? Is that up to individual districts? Well, tell me about their PSAT requirements. Is it just a blanket requirement across the state, or?
There's an expectation that comes from that and share more.
Okay. Okay. Cool. There's none of that, but that was a,
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah,
anybody,
it's not a requirement.
no, it's not required.
okay, we just made that decision.
You put it out as an expectation.
And also, as Dan was saying, is I think to the benefit of students to be able to have experience taking those tests, because it can, for example, you can use SAT results, for example, to meet graduation requirements. It's, you know, it's not required, but it's an option. And so I know in the past, you know, a lot of our students have met some of their graduation requirements by getting certain levels on the SAT test. So it's, you know, it's beneficial. And that was, yeah, I'm pretty sure that, yeah, there's a decision made by Foster High School.
And that would be a beneficial thing for students to know.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Truly the superintendent. Okay, a couple of different areas. One, earlier this week, we had a meeting with, different departments and, building administrators around the accreditation process, kind of district-wide. I thought it was a really good, meeting because we talked a lot about alignment. They thought the timing of us, working on our strategic plan, lined up very well. And, I think it's an ongoing process that we're gonna have, and I think the principals each shared that they feel will be beneficial for us to be in that alignment, a lot of shared language. I think there are a lot of areas in different aspects of that alignment that also reflect a lot of the values of what we're looking at. Race and equity lens on a lot of pieces that we're looking at, which was also helpful. So it's definitely a process that I can share a little bit more about the different strategies that we're taking a look at. And this process will continue throughout the year. So this, excuse me, this was just the first meeting of this particular year at the accreditation. Tomorrow night, we have one of our opportunities for strategic plan feedback that will be at Showalter from 5:30 to 7. We'll have some food available from 5:30 to 6, and then break out in different areas by languages. So we have our family liaisons helping us out in the various languages. Materials for that will be translated and presented to families in that language, and then we'll have someone taking notes at the same time for feedback. We'll have people sign in and then be able to give reconnect with them a little after we kind of summarize and get all that information in. So I'm looking forward to that tomorrow. This Thursday, I had a meeting with the Tukwila Children's Foundation, and one of the updates that I'll be giving is around a program that we used to have, really utilized at Foster. There's around partnership we used to have with lens crafters with eyeglasses, getting eyeglasses for students. We don't have that partnership. We haven't had it for several years, so we do have some other partnerships, but I'm trying to figure out ways where we can continue to support families in that. I noticed many of us in here have eyeglasses. I was the same way. I first started using them when I was a lot younger. Conveniently lost several pairs early on because I didn't want to wear them. But then once I couldn't really ride a bike or drive a car without them, then that was not a good thing. So I wear them now, and I'm not a person who can wear contacts. I have pretty massive astigmatism, so contacts don't really work for me, and I'm a little too life experienced to have LASIK. So after a certain age, it really doesn't take for very long. So anyway, this is an update we'll be getting with Tuckahoe Children's Foundation. I look forward to finding these continued options of supporting our families, especially around areas that we're not experts in. And the last thing I wanted to touch on, I had a meeting last week and have a meeting coming up this Thursday around this group called Leadership. This leadership group provided with various King County entities around trying to prevent a lot of youth violence. So in this particular case, one of the connections I've had with Principal Blanton up there is trying to find some various mentoring groups. And so when I connected with this group, there are groups that help to mentor African-American students. But we're looking at a couple of other groups that he feels could be beneficial too. So I was connecting with this group to talk about if there are some good other mentoring opportunities for some of the various student groups that we might have. So
What was the name of this group?
it's called LINK, which is a leadership, I'm trying to remember the official acronym, but it's LINC. It has the King County Department of Justice. We also linked in like YMCA. So it's just an opportunity to really try and, help students before things get out of control, or if students end up having some challenges with the legal system, it's meant to help get them back on track. So, and I meet with that group at least once a month, and then there's most of the South King County school districts are involved with it as well as law enforcement from different entities. So it's a really positive group. We have a lot of really good thinking people who put in a lot of energy. So the meeting last week was a lot around YMCA and a couple of other groups that do a lot of outreach, which is great. That's what I have for this week.
Any questions? Just have two quick follow-ups. On the accreditation process, or with the, really glad to hear that was a successful meeting and the process after a good start. I did want to circle back around the Foster High School accreditation.
Right.
So I know that we didn't think we were accredited, and we were accredited, and then we're not quite accredited. So I just wanted to check in. We kind of circled back to make sure that that was now current.
Yes.
And it is that
Yeah.
officially accredited.
Yes.
Okay,
Basically, I think
wonderful. And then around the strategic plan feedback, I was just curious if we, I assume, contacts were made with all the folks that originally did that interest form at family night. And then was there outreach done to folks who participated in the original stage?
I think for some of the original pieces, we haven't been able to connect with everybody, but I think for the people that we knew were in person, I think a lot of them also showed up at the family night pieces. So then we'll just kind of compare that with what we've done, with who shows up tomorrow, move back with who we connected with again in the spring, and kind of coalesce all of that feedback so that we can reconnect with everybody.
So there has been specific outreach done. Some.
Yeah.
Okay.
For
Okay.
How many of us are going to that tomorrow? Just 12? 2?
I don't need to go.
No, I'm just, I mean, so Dave, you're going, Edna, you're going, Okay, so I won't go then. Okay.
Well, again, this is one. We had 24 I guess we don't have 24 hours anymore, but if more than one of us want to go, I mean, that's not one that's a problem with, I don't inviting, other people to come. So we could just, it could be noticed, it's probably too late now, but,
No, that's fine.
yeah, okay.
Quick question, if they're in breakout rooms, would that still count if you guys aren't together?
Probably, yeah, would probably.
Yeah.
But you can let me know who's attending.
Well, can go to the district meeting instead. I just,
So I'm kind of curious about, what was the decision or like, how did we end up only reaching out to a few versus all, or what was the?
I think it's just trying to reconnect with everybody. So on the, open house forms, just making sure that we're connected so they knew about the opportunity. But you're talking about
Sorry,
this.
yeah, the folks that attended before, you said some, but not all. So
Yeah, I
where
think-
would the outreach break down there?
I think for some of the names we knew about that were up for president, but we didn't keep a log of everybody that attended all of those meetings.
Ah, okay.
And that's what we're trying to do, from here on out, is to make sure we've got a log.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think I was definitely under the impression that part of the intent of those first collective meetings were to gather all of that feedback and then bring those people back in. So it seems odd that that wasn't put into place initially to make sure we could actually close that loop.
Right.
Yeah, okay, those are the questions I have. COVID report.
Got Ms. Maestro online.
Hello.
Mhm.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just making sure that I am. Oh, I see that I'm talking. So the caseload has been slow, or not slow, low. It's been posted online. In terms of updates, we have updates that came out this afternoon. I'm still working on reviewing them, but I'm working with Dr. Herndon, Carrie, and the rest of the COVID team in getting communication out by Friday. That should be going out to all staff and parents via email and Skyward, and then also be posted on the website. Trying to think if I have any other updates, but don't think that I do for now.
Can you-
Actually, that's happening on Friday. There's an update coming from King County Department of Health on Thursday. So they've been, even though the emergency declarations are complete at the end of the year, King County Department of Health will say, oh, we'll give you an update for the 27th. So it's late, but that's kind of their timing on whatever updates are coming.
I just want to confirm what I think is true, that there hasn't been any other types of communication in preparation for letting families know that things were, that not everybody is probably following CDC. They may not even know this declaration is ending. And I know that we had talked about that, I think, last month. So just want to confirm, was there any sort of communication around preparing folks for the fact that this emergency order would be lifted?
I don't think we sent out anything particularly, Ms. Martin. So we didn't send out
No,
anything.
because our conversations were that we needed to wait for the guidance from mental health. And Hannah, you can confirm this, it's not dramatic changes for families, is that correct? Hannah, can you hear me?
Yes, that's correct. So the change that came out during our last board meeting was in regards to the emergency proclamation, and that the only change that would happen was in regards to the volunteers that were coming in. They did not need to be vaccinated, but the COVID updates that we are receiving are not coming out until the 27th. We did receive the what is it called, like the document today, but there will be a meeting on the 27th. And then that's when we are going to completely draw or finalize the draft of the communication that's going to be going on Friday.
Yeah, so I don't think any of the practices are dramatically different from what we've been doing throughout this school year. There are a couple things that I think will continue to go on, like if there's an outbreak, wherever they may have, but we'll highlight whatever those differences may be.
But staffing changes, is that right? If we don't need quarantine specialists and all of that,
I think we still have them throughout the year for the remainder of the year. So if there were to be an issue, like if there was an outbreak and we had to do something, then yes, we'd still have those folks available to support.
okay.
But not on that.
Correct.
Oh, I knew there was something.
Yeah.
Okay, the contract,
Yeah.
the contact tracers.
That's not a process that we needed to do for several months. Yeah,
Okay.
they've kind of got that. for a while.
All right, just reports, anyone want to start? I got it. Just a few things. So I know I've been talking about it, we've made some steps in our safety and inclusion task force. We had a selection committee, meeting on, what day was that, even last week sometime?
Tuesday.
It was Tuesday or Wednesday. Great group of folks came together, which is exactly what I had hoped, where we really just kind of challenge each other, push each other, have us think about things that maybe the other one wasn't. And so we extended invitations to actually 22 folks to be on the committee. We ended up having 25 interested parties. And we ended up with at least a few like subject matter experts that are doing this work in King County or at UW. And so really excited about the expertise that they're going to bring and just really the diversity that's going to be present in the committee. Really, really excited about that. So that work will hopefully be, we're in the process of trying to schedule the orientation, but we'll hopefully get that going next week. And really excited that we're going to be having co-chairs for that. And one of them is going to be a student, one of the amazing students that has been really pushing this work since last March. I'm really excited about that. Not sure who the other co-chair is going to be just yet, but we'll see. The other thing that I've been doing a little bit of work on, and not enough yet, is around the project of elevating youth voice of color and leadership. So Dennis and I met briefly with Ms. Herda at Showalter, who's really kind of the lead of the Tukwila team that's initiating this work. So just really excited to kind of we're meeting, I believe next week with Adam, who's from PSESD, who's really gonna spearheading some bringing this all together. So excited to just kind of be more present in some of those spaces. There will be 6 different learning opportunities that will collectively be a part of with other districts in the region that hopefully Dennis and I will be able to attend. So really excited about that. And of course, just figuring out ways that we can really increase opportunities for meaningful leadership and youth voice and engagement throughout our district. Starting at Showalter, and hope is to then go to 5th grade, actually go down rather than going up. Really excited about that possibility. And then I had the opportunity to just continue visiting a few schools and was in a classroom at Cascade View for their morning, just like welcome. And I got to sit on their SEL time, and it was just really, really lovely to see some of the work that we've been talking about actually in practice. So yeah, that's what I have.
I can go next because mine's gonna be really short, but I will show you what I've been up to. I don't know if you can see it. But this is my new promotion. I've been promoted to the white hard hat. It has taken all of my time, and because we have 2 building projects going on to create housing for our families. So I'm sorry I haven't been in the schools very much, haven't even been to the football game. But still working for the community, so.
I was able to spend some time at Foster, and just kind of hung out in the office and was able to speak to some of the staff, which is always rewarding, and I learn a lot. And I'm looking forward to the strategic planning meeting tomorrow.
So spent last weekend with the School Directors Association, was the legislative committee. We were reviewing the results of the priority setting mechanism. And so attached to tonight's report, I have the list of the comparison of how the the rankings that we had our top 10 and how they ended up relative to the top 10s of the yeah, there it is. So it's usually a pretty good match. So actually they came back with the top 10. I asked them to see, asked to see the top 20. These are, to think of these are top 20 out of 109. So, they're still pretty well up there. And so you can see most of the ones that we had there, matched up and ended up in the top ones. So the ones that didn't tend to be ones that talk about things that are kind of outside of K-12 per se, like early childhood, but stuff that's really, I like to put those on there because it's really important to us, but, in terms of a K-12 organization, they don't tend to rise to the top. And then some of them, the dual credit options and post-secondary education are related to, students going on to college and university and things like that. So it's good to have those positions. Are good to be there because WASDA in the past, there was some bills introduced. There's another state organization, Washington State Student Achievement Council, which works kind of all the post-secondary issues, and they put forward good proposals for allowing particularly students from low-income backgrounds to get a better connection and have better graduation rates and so forth. And so last year or a couple of years ago, they put forward some things to the legislature, and WASDA decided they couldn't support them because they didn't have a position. So now they have a position, which I put in a couple of years ago. So then at least they can go support those issues when they come up. So the only one that I was, a little disappointed was the first one there, the equity-based. That's a needs-based funding system, which I've been working on for many years, but it did get included in. So what the next step in this process is they take these and they develop kind of a one-pager that is used when the school districts and WASDA come down to the legislature. This is going to be the last weekend in February to talk to the legislature about what is needed. And that one pager, is involved in kind of wordsmithing that to kind of get in a lot of the words about a needs-based funding system. So anyway, so we should have, I was pretty happy that at least that part of it's going to get some support when we go. So so the last several years, obviously, those visits to Olympia have not been in person because of COVID. This year, as far as we know, the legislature is going to open up again and people will be able to go down there in person and talk. And in past years, we've always sent down a contingent, of some of the, adults plus students to talk with our legislators and have a day down in Olympia. So the legislature hasn't formally announced that they're going to open up, but everybody assumes they are going to. So hopefully we'll be able to, once that is made, then we can kind of hopefully get a group of folks to go down and talk to legislators. And in past, we've always taken, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 students. So, Dennis, of course, you're welcome, and so is Sam, and but there may be other people in leadership who want to go down as well. So let's see. So that's the legislative.
Dave, did you say what did they choose for number 2? I don't see a 2 up there, so.
Let's see, their number 2 was full funding of basic education, which is basically that's the broad umbrella for you know, the constant thing when school districts go talk to the legislature is always, you know, it's the legislature's paramount duty to fully fund, and they never do it. And so that one comes up every year.
Every year.
And
Okay.
then the legislature comes back and always says, well, we gave you a lot of money last year. Why are you complaining? Well, because they've never fully.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the ongoing discussion that goes on. But yeah, that one always gets high on those. Like I said, I've been trying to focus them more on, okay, full funding, yes, but also equitable funding. So
Yeah.
need-based funding,
Right.
not just full funding. See, I was looking at, one of the things I was looking at was, on a different subject, our bond, charges that go out, how much we pay in debt service every year. And I'm noticing that in about 2026, the amount that we're collecting for the bonds is gonna go down, because we're paying off the bonds that were, you know, for, secondary schools. And so usually that's the time when districts, when you want to start thinking about the next bond. And, you know, when we were doing the last bond, it was in 2016, and the focus was on the secondary schools. And we kind of said, well, okay, the next one we go out for, we'll probably focus on the elementary schools. And so I'm just thinking now would be probably the time to start thinking about, you know, what is that we want to do, because 2026 would probably be the year to go out. And because you can, when you go out, when, you know, the payment of the existing bonds is going down, then you can go out and say, well, we're not going to raise, you know, the amount we're collecting. So anyway, it would be good to start thinking about, you know, what do we need in terms of building, you know, construction, and get that on a kind of timeline, because it always takes us, you know, it takes a couple of years to kind of do the planning and figure out and so forth, so on. So I just kind of throw that one out there. I've been having discussions with the city about the South 144th Street Bridge issue, and they did, and with our support letter, applied to the Puget Sound Regional Council, or for some money to fix that bridge. It's about a $3 million fix to put safety features on that bridge. It turns out at the city, they did get that approved. The problem is the money wouldn't come till 2026. So it's a way down the road. And when I heard that, well, why don't we, our backup plan was to go to the state and ask for their capital project money. So I kind of broached the city, well, why don't we just, take a shot at going to the state and maybe we get it early. The way these projects work also is you need to get some money to do the design work, detailed design work up front. And so if we can maybe even get that, I know the state sometimes like to fund a portion of the project with the whole thing. We get that, and then we could get it kickstarted and get it going a little quicker. So, and they agreed. So I talked to Representative Hackney's office, and the forms for applying to the state won't appear till sometime in November, so next year. So anyway, at that point, and the other project we talked about as state money was the PAC renovation. So I will, as soon as I get the forms from Representative Hackney's office, we can throw that into the bin and apply for that and see how that works out. Let's see. The other thing from the work session we had with the counselor and social workers and so forth last week last session, referred to this Senate Bill 5030, which was passed a couple of years ago. And one of the things in that one was that all school districts needed to have by the beginning of the 2022-23 school year, which is this year, develop a transition plan for developing and implementing the comprehensive school counseling program plan. So I'm just curious, do we have one?
We're developing that.
Okay,
right
we're
now.
developing it. Okay,
We're meeting that.
okay. Because one of the things that's included in that plan, when OSBI is talking about it, is the whole section about, social emotional development. So that would be a good fit for kind of the whole, to develop a plan for what we're going to do for social, emotional, and mental health situations. So, I look forward to seeing that when it's available. let's see. Yeah, I don't know, Director, are we still working on this, meeting with the city council? Is that in the works? We've been talking.
yes. And I say that hesitantly
Yeah.
because I didn't necessarily know that I was in charge of that. But I was-
Okay.
I did talk to.
I know, the reason I bring it up because I was talking with the president of, of the Tuckahoe City Council, and he was saying, he mentioned, I think that
We
he
had chatted at the.
chatted,
Okay,
yeah, briefly, yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, I just, we haven't done that for a number of years, and I think both sides agree that it would be a good thing to do. He was saying like maybe January or February after the first of the year sometime, but there's so, when I was thinking about, okay, what would we want to put on the list, it's interesting, the city is going through a process where they're going to change. Right now, there's a city fire department, and they're going to be a part of a regional fire department. And as a process of that, well, a couple of their fire stations, one of them, Fire Station 52, across on the other side of the freeway, got eliminated. They moved their Fire Station 52 elsewhere. So that's a property that's kind of open, a building that's kind of open. And they're also talking about 54, which is across. And in that process, there's kind of what's the city going to do with that property? Do we have, and it kind of ties into the bond I'm thinking about, do we have it, does the school district have an interest in those properties? And Tom was saying he's kind of interested in our, service center property for a teen center, because it's interesting, the teen center, which looked like it was going to go over by the old nursery, by Foster High School. And then everything kind of stopped, and I'd asking him what's going on. Well, they're thinking about it. They haven't given up on a teen center, but they don't know quite where to put it. So anyway, all those interlocking parts, I think it would be helpful to have the school district and the city kind of communicating about, what are you trying to do? What are we trying to do? And then, put that on the list of things to talk about them. And then the 144 speed bridge I was talking about, we're talking about communications. The city has the Hazelnut communication, and that's a mailer they send out to everybody in the city. It'd be nice, maybe we could get a page on it or something like that. Anyway, those are some potential topics for that meeting. And the last question, and maybe I'll save this for the other one, but just throw it out to start. So we got this arts report about, and with recommendations for what we should do with the arts in the city or in the school district. And I guess, I probably want to talk about that when we get to ESSER funding, because we haven't really developed a plan. I mean, there's some nice recommendations in there. So what are we going to do with it? So anyway, I'll talk about that more in ESSER. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so we will move to approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
And all in favor?
Aye.
That stands approved. So we have no items for board discussion, so we'll move to questions on the presentations. Before we ask any other questions that come up, I wanted to check on there were a few that I came back to you that we were hoping to get some more context or detail around. So I wanted to just give you and your team some space to provide some of the additional detail.
Do you have some of the members who will be able to access those? So as they come up.
Oh, one, they're not additional, they're the ones that we asked originally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're just looking for some follow-up on
Yeah.
some of the ones that were just a little bit shorter.
Yeah. We've got some members who can address, right?
So for, I guess, reference to other directors, there were a few of these that just weren't really, didn't quite answer the questions. I know a few of them were related to asking about how much money is available, how might something be maintained, questions around consultants, that were all just kind of either didn't quite answer the question, or just didn't go into the detail that I assume we all hoped for. And so I emailed Dr. Herndon this morning requesting at least some more detail on a few of the questions.
So are we gonna go down section by section, or are you,
Sure, yeah, we can, that works.
so I'm gonna start with the financial forecast. So the question I had on that one was related to the big category of, kind of what was not projected, the Medicaid ESPER care updates, RSIG set of money, and I guess what I was, so that's, my understanding of that is, at the beginning of the year, we take a shot at seeing how much it's gonna be, right? And you're just saying, okay, in this case, it turned out not to be that.
Correct, and it was actually an oversight on my behalf, because when I went back and did the adjustment, it should have been higher prior for the last month. It should not have been reduced. So when I looked at it, it was an oversight on.
So you have a big collection of things there. Is there any one, this was the 422,700, which is the vast majority of that whole category. Was there any one of those that was, or was it kind of spread? You have Medicaid, ESPER, Cure Updates, RSIG, or was it spread kind of evenly across?
So that one was in under projected, that should have been caught on the last financial forecast. So if that one had been right sized, it would not have been.
Yeah.
That it wouldn't have been.
Yeah, I'm just curious, was there one of them
Which
that was
piece of
particular?
Oh, it was part of the gates and.
Oh, the
Bureau.
Gates one, okay. All right. That's all I had on financial forecast.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, so for the ESSER, the few questions that we're looking for a little bit more on, so how much of the unused ESSER dollars do we currently have a plan for? And I know that you're continuing to work with folks to really develop those things, but I think there was just some curiosity around what is that amount that we have for estimating?
So that one is, the fact that, because since we have until 2024, I earmarked about 3.5 for the next fiscal year, but that dollar amount can change contingent on what we've been for this year, because again, the grant kind of rolls over. So again, some of the things that we use for ESSER 1 trickles down to ESSER 2, and then ESSER 2 then trickles down to ESSER 3, depending on what we still have. I should say some of the mandates, for example, like we spent a lot of money for the technology piece, PPE, but since a lot of those things are just, they're being dismantled per se, those monies can be earmarked in other ways. So just kind of going back through the process again, right? Getting information from our stakeholders, our parents, our family, and our staff to kind of see what has been working, what hasn't been working, how can we do a better job? What does that look like from their perspective? So again, going back out and having those conversations.
So I guess. Okay, so I guess on that subject, I'm just thinking of this there's a big pot of dollars. And, one of the things we have, we have areas that need some, I think, planning work done, which would be ideal for these ESSER dollars to, because we only have them for a couple of years and then they go away. So, for example, the whole area of social, emotional, and mental health. I mean, this is an area where we could, bring in either pay somebody internally or facilitate or consultant to help us develop a good solid plan and then launch us off and hopefully, be kind of a self-supporting after the 2 years goes away. So, that would be one thing. So the plan, in other words, the plan for the arts, program, if we need somebody to come in and help. I mean, I know our staff is pretty, clogged up now, particularly since we're kind of short-staffed at the moment. So maybe we could hire somebody to come in and do some of that planning work. There's a whole area, I think we're working on the tutoring stuff. and how to do that better. I guess we kind of stopped, I don't know if there's anything left on the ventilation systems to improve that at all. Those can be big dollar amounts, but then we have big dollar amounts to spend potentially, so. And so anyway, it just seems like it would be good to have some kind of idea, okay, we're gonna go, try and look at this area, this area, and this area, and then if we need some outside help to do that, now's the time to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, and that kind of goes into question 5 of, I know a plan's being worked on addressing, student staff well-being, but I was kind of curious, like what are the general estimate amount that you're looking at actually like utilizing for that?
So it's kind of hard to throw a number out there without the overall plan, right? Because I don't want to say, hey, we'll earmark, $500,000, right? And then when it's all said and done, we only need 200, or the cases we might need 650. So I don't want to just throw out a vague number without having done some background work. We do have dollars available for it, but I don't feel comfortable just throwing out a number without having done some kind of behind the scenes work.
Yeah, that's why I think it's kind of like a construction project. You need to spend some money up front to do some planning work, and then you have an idea of how much.
Can we go back up to number 1, the ALE program? Dr. Borsche, I'm not sure you told us that it's creating an opportunity for online learning and grad allowance for 6-12 secondary. How many kids are being served, or how's that working? Is that already in place, or that's something that we're still buying into?
It is all new. And I know we have 2 children. For a virtual. Online school, and I would have to get back on the number of students who are participating in that.
And are those 2 children also in the classroom, or they're only
They are remote learning totally.
totally remote? Okay.
So do we anticipate that's obviously parents' choice, and do we think that's going to probably continue?
From what I understand, they participated last year.
Okay.
So they continue this year.
Okay,
But we don't, do we know what the expense for that is?
Well, sorry, I can give you what we paid last year, and then I can give you kind of what we are projecting for this year, but I can give you those numbers tomorrow. But to kind of piggyback off what Dr. Borsche was saying, so when COVID hit, we had to provide some type of additional learning opportunity, right, prior to the hybrid model. So it's just a continuum of what we've been doing since COVID.
And is it an expectation that we will have to continue that?
We won't after this is kind of that COVID emergency is out. In the past, school districts have sometimes offered that. But usually you're looking for kind of a threshold number of students who want to participate. Ours is pretty low, especially at the elementary level. So, and there's a requirement at the state level to be an approved provider. So any courses you offer online, any instruction you offer online, if you're going to host it yourself, it has to be approved by OSGI. So you can develop one for yourself, but again, usually you need a threshold of students to kind of justify the staffing for it. So it's usually easier to either just contract it out or just let parents know, we don't provide that, but there is another available.
And the Grad Alliance is the same thing. It's a totally virtual.
Yes, we've used Grad Alliance, which has been utilized previously even before COVID. So it's a credit recovery system for students who are a little farther behind, need additional credits beyond what if they're behind and graduating on time.
So those are students that are in our classrooms also?
Yeah, I think that's both.
Okay.
Sometimes it's students not in, and sometimes it's students who are.
Do you know how many students?
I don't know. We'll
Yeah,
have
I
to see.
can give those information.
Is graduation an option or like for students to go entirely online or no?
For graduation lines, I don't know what they provide.
Possibly, yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
But I will clarify that.
Yeah.
And do we, I'm sorry, this is not making sense to me. Do we get BEA dollars for those students then?
We do plan them on our.
Okay, all right.
But we have to.
But we
pay
also,
the provider.
correct.
So they take the lion's share of that.
It's a pass through.
Yeah, basically, we get a overhead fee for that, but they'll typically take the most, which is why some districts move to do usually a bigger district will do that for themselves, because in that way they collect all the FT. But then other districts that are smaller, they will look for other providers and see who provides,
Yeah, I think,
good quality plus the best price.
I think that the agreement, the last organization we did business with for a while, Red Comet, I think, you know, they got 80%, we got 20%, something like that.
Yeah.
No, we get 20% for doing nothing.
Well, no,
There's
it's not
some
nothing.
things we have to report, yeah. we
Okay,
still have to
just the
report.
reports. Okay.
The second, I was interested, said, we will continue to advertise, so tutoring, we will continue to advertise our current tutoring partner. Do we have a current tutoring? What is it?
Yes, we're partnering with AHA Learning. We also believe we have varsity tutors. And then I
Okay.
believe Urban League at the high school does additional tutoring as well. So we have a couple of different sources that do tutoring for our students.
And do we know how many kids are involved there?
I would have to get the count for you. As we're ramping up the year, the numbers will change, but I can get those numbers for you.
And I guess the other question, do we have any way, how do we determine if any of them are any good or not? Or which ones are good, which ones are bad?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's one that we're gonna continue to look at because, you know, tutoring is a portion of
Yeah.
what we're looking at.
Yeah.
but Probably not the most. It's. I don't know the best way to attribute the effectiveness of the tutoring that we would see on a outputs, but we are trying to figure out a good way to. Get some feedback from the students involved, the staff involved to see if they feel like. You know, they're able to do that, as well as figuring out the best way. To have them use the tutoring, often it comes after school or,
Yeah,
you know, on Saturday, and that can be
right.
tough for students if they've been in school all day, all week, so we're trying to figure out good ways to connect.
Yeah, there's the various tutoring programs that are floating around. You know, the one up at that, you know, elementary school, and which they can do both. I mean, they people really do both, so, but
Are these all in our building? The ones we have that we're naming right now?
AHA, no. Varsity, I would have to get back to you. And then Urban League, I believe they are on campus, but I'm not sure if they have a hybrid model,
Yes,
so
okay.
I'll let you know.
All right, thank you.
yeah, the third, the specific PD that is going to be funded, that's, I get back, we still, it would be really good to have an overall professional development plan of everything that we have, so, and how it fits in with each other. Because it sounds like, yeah, it's another good opportunity in the next couple of years to the pinch point will probably be just having enough staff hours in the day to do it, but anyway. All the questions I had on that section.
Just, nervous a little bit after looking, I appreciate the position breakdown for the LMS report. Just thinking about the fact that the communications director, the 34%. And then all the family liaisons are coming out of ESSER, and so it just worries me about like what might happen after ESSER. And so, I mean, I know there's a question here, read up in the scope, but like, how are we gonna ensure that we have the funding to be able to maintain those positions? I mean, even if the scope of work, if you look at the family liaisons might change, those are vital positions, right? And clearly the communications director is an incredibly important position. So I'm just nervous about what that might mean.
Yeah.
For those positions, yeah. Esther, what was the question?
Yeah, I guess the only other one is, I mentioned earlier, is the arts. So we have this nice arts report, which came out with a bunch of recommendations and it even talks about, there is already a district arts team. Is that true? Do we have a district arts team?
I don't want to say no, but I feel like when I got the recommendations from Teaching and Learning back in
Yeah.
May-ish, that the recommendation based on what I'm looking at came from the arts team.
So this is kind of an ad hoc team.
I believe
Okay.
it's the same one we've been working with, but I will
Yeah.
confirm that.
Because, yeah, I think having, that's always been my observation, we need someone or some group that's kind of advocating for the arts in an ongoing fashion. It seems like is what's been kind of
Is
missing.
it the group that met with her during that period of time?
I believe so. That made
They were all-
the recommendation. Yeah.
The music.
For the next 2 years.
Yeah. Because the next step would be to actually, take some of these recommendations and develop them into an actual plan that we could implement probably over multiple years or something like that. So anyway, and that's something, ESSER dollars would be ideal for using for developing the actual concrete plan.
Would it be beneficial to have that woman that helped them create the assessment, work with them on a plan? Is that
Possibly, sure.
Yeah. Possibility.
Yeah, if they need a facilitator to.
Right, so, because I believe that they do have the recommendations until 2024 of how they wanted to play, how they wanted the plan to
Oh,
come
they
to
do?
fruition.
Okay, yeah, that wasn't.
I think it was pieces. I think they took pieces from that
Okay,
and then generated how they wanted to
Okay.
implement it over the next.
so that would be good then for us to see that, so that we could kind of, as we pass budgets, to see if it's actually funded.
Here's one of the consultants.
That's an amazing report. Thank you. The consultant report is excellent. I'm
No team,
guessing,
though.
yeah.
I guess one of the big, as I was looking through this, one of the big concerns was a lot of this, well, some of the ESSER money, it looks to me, correct me if I'm wrong, was being used to fund special education students, which is good. My only concern is what happens, 2 years when that goes away. Are we, is this, I don't know, these things that are choosing for special, is it? One theory is, okay, we've had COVID, that caused a lot of mental health and distress among our students, particularly special education students. And then, if we can focus on, repairing that for the next couple of years, then maybe we don't need as much. That's one theory. I don't know how true that is, but I don't know, how are you guys thinking about? Is that what you're thinking? So that, after a couple of ESSER dollars drop, we won't need as many of those services?
That would be a hope,
Yeah,
but
right.
we would have to work in partnership with Ms. Jones to kind of give us the idea around that, because that's her.
Is that kind of how you're thinking about it, or is it totally different? This idea that we're gonna infuse a bunch of support with the ESSER dollars with the hope that we don't need to continue that particular support?
would be the hope.
Okay.
There's also just, the legal requirement that we do have for students that require support for challenging behaviors.
Right.
And also those that are doing evaluations. And so as the field continues to grow and more expertise, is in that area, there has been a shift in how we, do evaluation and who performs those, and then pulling those teams together to write the intervention plans and then how to ensure that those are being followed and the data collection piece that goes along with that. I will say that, yes, we have substantially, hired more staff for this area, and we will be taking data to see, how their time is being spent and how much time is spent their caseload, looking at caseload. For each of these registered behavior technicians or certified behavior technicians, they have to be supervised by what's called BCBA, which is the board certified behavior analyst. And then there's always the pieces where some can perform evaluation, some cannot, based on their licensure. And so as we compile all of this information, we are making sure we're taking data for each of these responsibilities and how hopefully, this extra support and especially in the area of socialization, social learning, and working through really targeting those unwanted and challenging behaviors and how we can address those. We're hopeful that it will be, a big impact, and we can also show a need for budgeting further. Well,
Probably why in those legislative budget or special ed funding is at near the top for a lot of those.
Oh, yeah, that predates COVID.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
so that,
I think COVID just realizing the impact on the students.
Yeah. Yeah,
The fact that it made the field even more challenging. Because part of that, a lot of their field, burn out a lot of the staffing in that. I think it's an emphasis that, it's already kind of a dire situation.
Right.
And that just accelerated. So.
How many of these consultants are full-time? Are all of them full-time?
and we don't have any,
Sorry, it's the contractors. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that we're talking about contractors, not consultants, because usually when it's this for the staff with the special ed department, the 99% of them are contractors. So I just wanted to
What's the difference in a consultant and contractor?
So consultant is somebody that's coming into that you're doing consulting work with, right? So you may do like an analysis of something. So they're analyzing something and you're working together.
And
for
are
a
they short-term project kind of thing? Is that?
I mean, you can have contractors that do short,
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
so, sorry, it's just,
Okay.
so, for, I believe the question that you're asking, on behalf of the contracted staff that we have for special ed department, I believe they are for the most part, full time.
for the most part, we do have some that have very specific FTEs, and they may just work 1 or 2 days, like for teachers that are visually impaired. She only works with about 4 students, so she's part-time. And then we do, what's tricky too, is we also have some, we're having to be very thoughtful and creative in the way some of our students are being served. Example, a physical therapist. But a physical therapist is online, however, we have a physical therapy assistant doing the therapy. So there's the pieces there where the PTA has to be supervised by a PT, and only certain individuals can do evaluation versus the actual therapy. And so we just have to be really creative with how we're staffing. There's such staffing is difficult across the state. We are competing with healthcare as well. So
question was asked if consultants had been hired for PD. Were those included on
It's on the, so sorry, I'm a visual person. It's not on the really, really long list. It's on the
the
shorter,
additional?
the shorter list.
And
Yeah.
that's,
But
I'm just saying that includes everyone we brought in for PD.
For this year, yes, as of what we know now. So that will change as we continue going through the year. And then if you need a list for last year, I do have a list that I can get you guys by tomorrow.
So one of the questions, was on what are the details of the work we've done with KBHJ Consulting? And the response back is executive coaching, which is right here on the report. But I was hoping to get like a detail, like what is that looking like? Some.
She's right here.
Hello, hi, how are you? Welcome. Great. Does that mean you're gonna talk to us about it?
So each of those, so that's not what we're going, so this is part of we'll do an update mid-year, so this is part of the executive coaching that we have for some of the administrators we did last year. We're continuing that this year. Not all of our administrators have their coaches in place yet, but this is just one of the ones that came through, so other ones are going to be identified, and then we'll. So we'll have a report kind of after we've had an opportunity to meet with all of the coaches and then actually have some work done for the year.
Okay. So.
But that's.
is it true that yes, it provides coaches for new principals?
AWSP, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they have two coaches?
Yes, they have a mentor, AWSP provides a mentor, and then they have an opportunity for coaches.
Okay. And how many years will these administration?
They get it for their first 3 years.
First
when they're
years.
new. That's provided by the state,
The mentors
correct?
and the coaches,
We're paying for the coaches.
and how long?
We just look at it year to year. So we had them last year. They're not probably gonna be every single year, so.
So I just want to, sorry, just make sure I understand. So executive coach for who?
This is the four shades, executive coach. Yeah,
Okay.
so each administrator is.
Okay, that's very more than that.
And I think that was part of the little disclaimer I put at the bottom. with the little
Yeah, yeah,
asterisk
yeah,
about
yeah,
this.
yeah.
More will come, we just haven't kind of a snapshot of what we have.
Maybe it would be helpful if maybe even we could attach a name to who the executive coach is for, or
Oh,
a
perfect.
fuller name or something
Yeah.
that way. It helps connect the dots. Okay. Any other questions? On this one?
How are we, looking at accountability? How do we test accountability on these? I know that they must have contracts. Right? Who follows up on the contract accountability?
Meaning they adhere to what, to their deliverables or the objectives of the contract?
Yeah, I mean, are there objectives, like between these two people? That then who checks to make sure that those objectives have been met? On any of the consultants, actually.
Yeah, so we're putting that, I mean, in each of these, for any of the consultants, that's what we would look at is what's a good measure to show that there's some sort of outcome and impact. So we're trying to tie them either to, you know, a data set could be CEE, we were just talking about that, because there's generally surveys done about specific areas in CEE where there might be a disconnect between those things. So you're hoping to close the gap there. Something that aligns, could be aligning closer to the strategic plan when we have some outcomes in our strategic plan. So have you moved, something within the building or within your department that aligns closer with that? So each one's going to be a little bit different because the measurement. But yes, we are looking for measures that would show progress or positive outcomes because of that.
And every department head would be,
That's what we're looking to do.
yeah, okay.
And are the coaches, do they come into the building?
Yes, they're in person. We've asked for them to be in person this year. They'll also be consulting virtually, but we've asked them to be in person.
Okay, because I asked you, my understanding is that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
there's a lot of virtual last year. We're trying to get away.
The only reason why I'm asking about this one specifically is because it just recently happened to fresh in my mind for the bigger PD. So I know we had some folks come in doing their core competency trainings recently. Where are they on here?
I would have to see who the vendor is for the core competency. And do you happen to know what month that was done?
It was last month and this month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So- Okay, so that's missing, the CEE, work strategic plan, that one's missing. So
probably
there,
last
It was
year.
last year, so I wasn't, so when I got the data point information, like SPED was very specific, 2021, 2023. When I got this, my assumption was it was for this year,
got it.
but I will have that for you tomorrow
Yeah,
because
no,
I.
that's okay. So we're not paying CEE?
We've already, the contractors go
Got it.
until it's
And the
done.
project's missing, okay. Okay,
I mean, this has a mixture of 2021, 22, 23 in this report. Right?
just that.
For
For
the
special
SPED,
ed.
for the special ed. Contractors, everything else.
Everything else is
22,
20.
23, and that's why it's so short. Silly, doesn't it?
Okay.
The other PDS thinking about, when we have Rebecca Milliman from Harvard News, did we pay for that?
Last year
It was this year, it was, the.
at the all staff meeting.
Oh, I guess.
Yeah.
All stuff was last year, so anything that.
There's,
The kickoff.
oh, I
So
see.
anything
Budget,
that
yeah.
happens, absolutely.
Yeah.
So anything that is
Okay.
from September through August is the prior year. And so if she did it in August, that would have been last year, and she's probably gonna pop up on the report tomorrow.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Mhm.
It all sounds like it's very close. They're very close.
I don't know how you keep all that in your head.
Hard.
You can see it explode one of these days.
So I think just kind of the follow-up for this, Mike said that the few things that you're gonna work on is, I think, once y'all can identify what are some of those, measurable things or, just kind of a follow-up back with us would be great. And I think just the other thing that I know, this was one of the reasons that, we wanted to see this report and, is, making sure that as we're bringing in consultants and contractors, that those are coming to the board. My understanding that is the process or has been the process and should be the process. And so just kind of want to recenter us back to what that contract is really run by the board. Great. Grants report.
So I'm gonna talk again a little bit about the Medicaid match situation. So I mean, I understand the issue with trying to increase the Medicaid portion is related to two issues. One is paperwork So more of a paperwork load and stuff. And number two is, I think you mentioned that in some cases, keeping certifications current is an issue. I mean, I understand the first one. The second one, you know, how is it kind of good for students if we don't have, you know, currently certified staff?
Right, so for, they do have to do their certification through OSPI.
Yeah,
So all the ESA certs do have to adhere to those.
okay,
It would just be those that are in private practice and have licensures, which they do not have to have in the school system. And so they don't have to put up those licensures, for private practice or for, working in home health or a hospital setting or whatever setting it may be. It's just not a requirement to be in school based. And then our contracted staff, that would be a whole other discussion we could have, as far as workload and additional it might take for them to do this work. That would be separate from our, of course, our TEA or BPA.
so is there a separate, you say certified through OSPI, so does Medicaid then have a different, you say, you refer to private practice, which has a different certification requirement, and so is that why, you know, trying to get Medicaid would require this private practice certification and not be, is that?
I can double check that I want to then speak, that's been my understanding in the past. I'm a former speech language pathologist myself, who's always worked in schools, and just for example, I know in a neighboring district, that was one of the requirements that you have your state licensure, and so that's just not a requirement to use school-based speech therapist. And there's also another piece to that, there's clinical competency, which is through ASHA, American Speech and Hearing Association. So that's another layer of certification. I know that costs a good bit for a year to keep that certification up as well, which is also not required to be a school-based speech language pathologist.
Okay, so what I would, it doesn't sound like anybody has talked to the healthcare authority, because I have that one, or have you?
No,
Okay, so I have that contact from a friend of mine who runs the program for schools, and so I'm gonna call her and give her those two things and see if there's, you know, there's any response to that, because I can't imagine that, I mean, that we're the only ones that have that issue. I'm sure it's statewide, so I'm curious, because my understanding is that they've spent some time working to address and make it easier for schools to take advantage. But I mean, I'm not an expert on that, but I will call this person, see if that registers with her, and then you know, maybe you guys can have the conversation after that, but because I'm not, it just seems to me that there's a lot of money sitting out here that we potentially could take advantage if we can get over these potential hurdles of the, you know, the additional paperwork and maybe some of the additional certification process. So, okay.
definitely partner together on that one.
The other question I had on the grants is, so this one-time quote grant, because Representative Burke was stuck in the budget bill, 148K for a Tuckahoe Elementary School after-school program, which I guess is like a grant. So the question is, he's gonna ask me, I'm working on probably a set of it, he's gonna ask me, so what are you guys doing with that? So do we have an answer?
We're paying for before and after school.
Well,
program.
like, can you give me a little specifics? Because
So-
in your report, you say nothing's been spent.
Correct, nothing
Okay.
has been spent to that.
So so what's the intention here?
So the intention, because we have a couple, well, because of ESSER
Yeah,
and because of 21st Century Grant, because of other different funding sources, we can actually plug and play a little bit.
Yeah.
With how we spend it, but we can for sure spend 148 first, right? And then work on the grant.
yes,
But from an accounting
Yeah.
standpoint is that, yes, it's giving us that money, but I have to work on the logistics around the account flow to make sure that it's expended right in the budget. So
okay, so you're gonna probably move some
Make sure to get-
dollars around, and so I can say, I mean, any of our after-school programs, which is what Champions and what are some other ones? After-school All-Stars. The others?
And then, well, the other before and after school supports that are different outside of those ones are charged to high lab. So I would like to keep those where those are earmarked, but for the most part, between those two, we can meet that. Rate for sure.
Okay, and we have those programs going at all three of our elementaries?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Not after school, sorry, that should go on. The champion, yes.
Oh, well, the 148 would only be eligible for the elementary. school.
Yes, so they're not, yep.
So
we
it's
have it all.
not after school, so it's the Champions?
Yeah.
Which is going at all three of our elementary schools?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, good.
One of the biggest curiosities is, does this include grants that maybe individual schools have been awarded?
Well, it depends, because sometimes schools might get money that I may not be aware of until later on. When it's especially if it's like a reimbursement.
But as much as like you're aware,
Yes,
this includes grants that are school specific.
Yep.
Okay. I know it's come up the last few times that we've gotten a grant report, just around the tribal heritage grant. And noticing that we're on year 2 of 2 and we haven't spent a ton, is that just because? Why is that?
that is a good question. We are the shorter director.
Sure.
Mario, director, I know is working with them. I know that she did and does have plans, and I want to say that that report is as of September, but I know that we've been doing some work. And so I believe that we will start to see the expenditures for those particular grants.
Okay. And talking about dates, when it says a year 2 of 2, or what is that? Is that calendar year? Is that our budget year? Is it the school year? Is that the legislative budget year? What is that?
So that one's.
Budget
That's a
year
good one. Are we ready?
organization,
Are we ready for school today? So, some of the ones that are, state funded, actually go from July through June, which is kind of weird to wrap your head around because of our
That's their state.
September 1 through, but a lot of the state grants are aware of that. And so we are able to still use it within our fiscal school year parameters. And so for that one particular, even though it's for 2 years, the way that we claim it is not compounded, right? Like with ESSER 1 or any of the ESSERs, especially ESSER 2 and 3, it travels through the whole entire process. So we see a year to date, it is from the beginning of the grant to the end of the grant. This one, not specifically, you're just getting 2 years of that, dollar amount for that grant.
Okay. Okay. All right. And we get a grant report like this once a week.
There's a grant report that actually you have a quarterly report,
Okay.
and then you have the one that's at the end of each month on the monthly budget status report, which you will get about 3 of them in November because that's just how it works.
Yeah. Cool. I look forward to seeing, kind of what we're doing with that. Thank you. Any other questions on that or the enrollment?
Yeah, the enrollment, so this, we're looking, as we start to come out of the depths of the COVID, we're looking, for me, it's always October number is the number that's really, September's are usually low and October hits. So I was really interested in comparing this to where we were, pre-COVID in 2018. And, it's interesting, most of the loss during COVID was in the early grades, K1, 2, and that's true statewide. We're not unique in that. And so when I compared it to those previous numbers and then looked to see how much, we're getting back, for instance, kindergarten, we were getting back 21 out of the 66, so about a third of what, we lost. And then it's interesting, first grade we got essentially nothing back, and second grade we got, 7 out of 50, so 14. So what that kind of tells me is that, the hope was that once we start to get significant out of COVID, that, we'd have a bigger set coming back. And this kind of tells me that that's probably not going to happen. We'll see, but, and so that says that we're probably going to have to be planning for, significantly smaller organization, particularly after the COVID dollars run out. So it's, I was glad to see, it's good that kindergartner is the one that's coming back the most. That's the one I was hoping for, but it's still not coming back, to anywhere near what we were before. So anyway, this is, and I think, I don't know, I'm still looking for a good report statewide, because I think all districts are kind of wrestling with this one. Where did all these, those K-12 kids go? And I don't think anybody, I haven't really heard, a great answer yet.
2 went to ALE, right?
So I didn't have a question. It was a comment.
Ms. Burton, thank you. I know that this was a lot. There was a lot for you to prepare for this meeting, so thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome. It was a team effort.
Oh, one last question, sorry. For the FTE, the full-time equivalent.
Yes.
What are some possible reasons why a student might not be fully enrolled?
I'm sorry. so-
What, for the FTE, what are some possible reasons why a student might not be enrolled full-time at one of the schools?
A lot of that would have to do more than with Running Start. A lot of that is.
For the FTE report that doesn't include full-time Running Start, so is that part-time Running Start or?
I would have to look at the report to see what the breakdown would be. Usually it's just, you know what? I would have to look into that. Thank you.
Yeah, with Running Start, we only get like 70%, I think is the number. Yeah. So the rest of it all goes, we take it in and then pass it to the college. Which is another one of the things on the list to complain about.
I do as well.
Okay, so we will now move to, we have one presentation on attendance and truancy, and this is one that we chose to do as a presentation rather than just a questions only. Mostly because this has been, I know, something that's been a really thing of importance or concern, I think, and so just wanted to provide plenty of space for us to just have some conversation about this. So.
All right, we're going to turn it over to Ms. Turner, who's going to do this, and Dr. Borchett can help out as well.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I have to open the screen up. So the truancy and stay in school re-engagement for Tukwila School District, and after meeting with Dr. Borchett and talking with her about where we want to see us going, and some of the things that we came up with were to create a team at each school, an attendance dream team, so to speak, which would include people in each building to help do with some of the work that I do, because I believe that it's important for parents to feel welcomed and feel engaged at each school. So when they call in and they can talk to somebody at the schools, they feel like they're being heard. So creating an attendance team at each school that will help with following up with students that have missed 3 to 5 days before it gets to the point where we are talking about a truancy petition at 15 days. So this team would include office managers, secretaries, the registrar, counselors, social workers. And these teams would work on building the support for each other and also for the family. So if a family is missed 3 or 4 days, when they call in, finding out what is the barrier for that, for those unexcused absences, and seeing how we can support them, whether it be helping them navigate housing, food insecurity, transportation, or whatever their issue may be. So that would be one of the first things that we would like to start working on. And how these teams will be supported are working with everyone in the office, starting with the registrars and having them do their registrar survival skill, which they completed. The other training that we did was we had all of the attendance secretaries, and I believe we had 3 new ones this year, having everyone in the district office doing the same training so that everybody is on the same page and everybody is very consistent about it. And we went over all of our attendance letters and setting it up so that we are all running the attendance letters at the same time, and the wording is all the same script. Having more, having opportunities for the staff to do some of these NWRDC trainings is very important. Like I said, we have a lot of new staff in registrars and office managers and attendance secretaries. So it would be helpful that everybody knows what we're doing and we're all on the same page. Taking the time to take in some data entry classes through NWRDC and data mining. And then the most important is making sure that when we're all putting this information in, it's all being reported accurately to the state. Next. So like I just was explaining, the professional development schedule we put into place, most of these classes will should all be completed by the end of November, early part of December, for the new staff onboarding, and then starting to work on building systems that will continue when staff, if or when staff changes. So making sure that there is a manual for people to follow and onboarding, that everybody does the same thing so that we are continuing with the consistent efforts that we're putting forth right now. And then working on creating a process for printing attendance reports, the letters. We all worked on that already. There might be a few tweaks that are needing to be done, but for the most part, I think everything went really smoothly last week when we all sent them out at the same time. Next steps. Keep going. Next step 7. Okay, next slide. Next slide. So we're working on a comprehensive plan, and so we did broke it down into several phases. As you can see here, September Skyward training, October we did the attendance letters. Next we'll be beginning the discussion on who will be on these attendance teams in each building. We'd like to try to keep the attendance teams pretty consistent on who is on the team. December, really looking forward to purchasing the Warrens assessment and getting that in place. I've already been trained on it. However, we'll need a refresher course, and then that will be one of the tools that I need to continue working with students who are facing barriers, large barriers to attendance when they have 15 or more unexcused absences. And then working on implementing all of these teams and moving forward with that. I'm sorry. Next will be phase 2. Oh, back up. Phase 2 will be in January, working on building these teams and making sure everybody's on the same page. And then while we're doing that, working on creating an attendance manual for all of the attendance secretary staff or attendance office staff. So we're all doing the same things consistently. And then the next big phase will be in March, working on building our CEB, our Community Engagement Board, and training and just getting the groundwork set up for that, with the goal of that being in place for fall of 2023. And then working with our McKinney liaison and getting all of the community partners put together on a list, so we have an idea of all of our community partners that we currently work with, and maybe seeing where we can build on increasing some of those partnerships, or bringing in new partners that maybe we're missing some in a certain area, and working with a process for us to track a process for referrals, so that we can track where these referrals are going and what are the outcomes? Are they positive? Do we need to readjust some of our community partners, or adjust how the referral process is done? So just so that we have a process for teachers and staff to do a referral for a student. Instead of just currently, we just kind of make a phone call or send an email, but actually having a way to track how these referrals are handled and how they are followed up with. Phase 3, during the summer, working with continuing and getting the CEB ready to start, and working on professional development with the community partners and the volunteers for this CEB, which will be, they need to be trained on interviewing techniques, and they have to sign, non-disclosure forms, and understanding how the process works. And then one of the things that would really like to get rolling is for in August to do a big attendance kickoff campaign for our families, and seeing who we can get on board to do some of this work. Next. Community engagement is really very important in the work that we do regarding attendance, and trying to build those relationships is really important. We'll continue with the partnerships we already have with the PSESD, the King County Re-Engagement Team, and as they continually build their partnerships with different groups out there. So it's always a work in progress, and see what groups we can bring in to help support some of the students that we have that are part of our biggest affected groups that we have at our schools, and hoping that we can build some community partnerships to help them. Just a rough estimate here. The biggest is the Warrens assessment, which is a yearly fee that includes, I believe, 300 assessments, 150 for the middle school and 150 assessments for the high school. It's kind of how it's divided up. Supplies for students, attendance manual, working on building that. I think one of our biggest budget items here will be in translating all of the documents that we will need for the community engagement board, working with interpreters as well for the community engagement boards, and how we want to set that up to make sure that the money that we are using is being spent effectively. Meaning like maybe do one day only for our Hispanic families and another day for maybe our Somali families, so that we're only needing one interpreter for one day for every CEB that we hold. So that's a model that some of the other school districts use that I've been looking at. So the money will be spent, a lot of it will be spent on translating all of the documents. And we also need to make sure that our attendance letters are all translated. It is a statute, that we have to have them translated in the language of their primary language. So that is something that really needs to be done pretty quickly when we're sending out these attendance letters. And that's about it.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. There were some questions that were asked, and I can follow up with the question number 3 regarding Skyward.
What was that?
On 10/18, and 10/20, it seems like there was a drop off.
Yeah, no, I think your answer makes sense.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Ms. Turner, this is amazing. It must feel really good after years of running circles.
Well,
Maybe there's
I-
a. teacher
I'm
help
very,
here.
I will just say that I've gotten some very good direction early on this year, and it's very nice to have that. And so kind of taking the direction from the new director of teaching and learning and really building on some of that has been it's kind of been rejuvenating, so to speak.
Yeah, I bet. How do you feel about the buy-in across the district on the kind of coming together and all using the same process format kind of thing?
Currently I am seeing everybody's really kind of excited about it, to have all of us on the same page doing the same things. And it kind of happened where we got a lot of new staff in the offices and attendance all at the same time. So it's kind of like a restart, so to speak. And everybody is really excited about it. Everybody wants to make sure we're all doing the same thing. I think a lot of the attendance secretaries all believe that when you have when you have the 2 different levels of school, and we have families who have children in, 3 or 4 different schools, mostly 3. It's nice to have consistency so that they get the same messaging. And I think that's kind of decrease a lot of the confusion that we get with a lot of our families on what they're receiving. So I think that's good.
I'm impressed.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent plan. I'm curious about you talked about WARNS, the Washington Assessment of Risks and Needs of Students. Is that given to every student, or how do you propose using that?
So the statute for truancy filing it requires that we do what is called a risk assessment for the barriers to attendance. And the WARNS assessment was created by Washington State University. And it's used in almost every district. I believe a lot of districts use it. And what it is, it's just an assessment addressing the barriers to attendance. It's not addressing mental health. It's not addressing anything else but the barriers to attendance. And it's required for filings on students who are in middle and high school. They are creating a elementary version, and they hope to have that rolled out, I believe, by fall of 2023.
And so this is used as an assessment when a kid has missed so many days, or
Correct.
how does it?
So
Okay.
what it does is it provides me with an idea of what are the barriers to attendance, and then how can I use that information to set up a plan to decrease those barriers, and what I can do, or the school or the district can do to support the student and the family. And it could be something as simple as making a referral to our McKinney-Vento liaison, or getting them more information on healthcare or things like that. So it's an easier way for a student to give me or explain what the barrier is without having to tell me, because teenagers aren't always really forthcoming with what's going on sometimes.
I wonder, has this been run through the race and equity tool, this WARNS system?
I
really-
believe not in our district, but I know it's in other districts, definitely.
So this one, okay, so you say initially it's for secondary and they're gonna be developing one for elementary and it's given to students who maybe have missed 3 to 5 days.
Well, I think that's where part of this process should come in. At 3 to 5 days, we would go through the 150 assessments probably within 2 weeks. And I mean, I'm just, that's just being realistic. I'm looking at it as something that's done prior to filing at 15 or more.
And when we talk about missed days, these are consecutive days.
No, these
Or
are unexcused absences.
days
They're
throughout the
not
whole year.
consecutive.
Okay. Thank you.
So the state, the statute states that a student, once they reach 15 unexcused absences in a school year, or 7 unexcused absences in 1 month, it should be an automatically filing with King County.
So I guess if it's, okay, so. I guess, so you're saying we wait till it gets to, 15 absences or 7 in 1 month.
So-
It seems like this information would be really useful earlier than that.
Right,
You're
so
saying
that,
just because of the cost.
no, I think part of it is the process that we're gonna have to come up with, and how will it be, how will it work? So will we be having this conversation with a student at 5 days? Then will it go to 10 days? So families will be receiving letters at 5, 10, and 15 unexcused absences. And the goal is with the attendance teams at the school level to be working with families at the 5 and the 10 day, because we're hoping that by then they've already addressed some of the barriers, whether it be transportation, or maybe the family just had an emergency and they never called in to the school. And they find, they did, and that got rid of the 5 days because they had to leave town or something like that. So I monitor the attendance pretty closely every other week. Every week I'm running attendance report. So I'm knowing what students are increasing in numbers, so to speak, or some that have stabilized in numbers. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So the ones that are increasing in numbers is when I'm doing the phone calls, texting, following up with families, getting the family liaisons involved if I need to, and hoping that right when they're at about 10, if I see it rising, that I do the assessment prior to the statute, which is the requirement of at 15. Never like to file truancy petitions because that just increases the anxiety for students and families. I always try to work with families and try to get them to re-engage prior to filing. And I use the filing as a means after I've done re-engagement work.
But I guess,
Right.
so the assumption is in the system that these barriers that are potentially there to attendance will be surfaced prior to running this Warren's assessment.
Correct.
Ms. Turner.
Yes.
Dr. Moore said. So I wanted to say, with the attendance team, what happens is when the attendance teams come together and they see that so many absences have occurred and they call home, that typically re-engages families in 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, prior to us having to go all the way out to 15 days. And that, when we do the attendance teams, the ultimate goal is developing those relationships. That's why we have the office manager, we have someone, we could have the building principals. When we have those teams, those students have different relationships, and someone on the team will say, I'll call this family because I have a relationship with that family, and they will say, you know what? Mom had a baby, or this is going on, okay. And we re-invite them back into the school. If
when we do that with the attendance team, then we won't have, it is anticipated that we won't have as many absences in terms of using the warrants.
That's the goal, yes.
Just for what you just spoke to, I really think that the building level approach, I think is gonna be so valuable. And I think one of the things I was thinking about is, you know, the translation component was spoken to about in relation to the CED. But I think it'll also be equally as important, not just in the letters, but you know, how are we actually like communicating in their home language around these things, so even verbally. And you know, I think there's so much too around just culture and other things that I think would be really meaningful to think about when we're creating those teams at the school. And I just want to just recognize and acknowledge. I really appreciate the attention to like the consistency component and trying to create systems that will outlast hopefully all of us, right? That just really, you know, kind of embeds this into the culture of how we do things in Tukwila. So thank you both.
When we look at the public budget implications, do we as a board need to do anything to help that be in the budget, or is that already in the budget?
Yeah, this is just the budget component that we're already factoring into the budget.
It's
So,
already there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
I guess the only thing that I was thinking of on the front end of this, I mean, this is one of those issues that, you know, the earlier you can figure it out, the better it is. And so, you know, when we had the social emotional mental health folks in here, they're talking about, you know, the government talks about a universal screener to kind of, even before they get to missing class, you know, to find out if something's going on in their head and they're wrestling with something. So that might be, I don't know that we have that yet, but it might be interesting to think about putting that even on the front end of this to try and catch, obviously, the sooner you can catch these, you know, the issues that are going on in student sides, the better. So.
Any other questions, thoughts, discussions? Thank you so much, both of y'all for being willing to just have space to really talk about this. So thank you. All right, so that brings us to our action items for today. So we have a few action items. Is that right? Wait. Yes, okay. Okay, approval of a human resources staffing report.
Second.
Okay, any questions or discussion?
I love the introduction to Ms. England today. That was great. Thank you.
My only concern with this is she began work before the board approved, and we seem to have a tendency to do that. So that's a concern. How can we avoid that?
All our hires are contingent, they all say contingent upon board approval.
So I guess I'm curious how that process works. So they start, which means onboarding starts, payroll starts, other things start. And it's so then, I mean, well, we're gonna approve obviously, but let's say we did it, then we would just, it just seems interesting, like, yeah, I don't know, I don't know. Let's see.
I can touch base with you about that.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, all in favor of approving the research staffing report?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then next is the approval of increase to the meal price for adult lunch for this year, 2022-2023.
You had to sit through this whole meeting.
So moved.
Somebody have a question or discussion?
How many adults,
For Trevor.
how many adults buy meals? How many do you think you serve a day?
It depends on the day. The high school serves the most, but we're getting like 6 to 10, the middle school, high school.
Is there a favorite with the adults? I'm trying to come up with some questions. No?
They got a nice email from the teacher though, appreciating all the meals we serve, so. That was nice.
Was that at the high school?
I know when I subbed at the elementaries, they give you a free lunch if you're a sub. But I was the only adult that ever got a lunch.
All right, all in favor of approving this?
Thanks, Deborah.
Thank you, Deborah. All right, and then the last one is approval of the out-of-state travel request for the National Association of Education of Polish Children and Youth.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? I do have some questions, but I think they can be taken out of this meeting. So all in favor of approving?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, stands approved. Okay, so with that, we will now move to our second opportunity for public comment. So if there's anyone online who would like to offer a public comment, you can put your name in the chat at this time or raise your hand. Seeing none, give me just a second, because you have trouble finding that raised hand button.
I think Veronica's daughter is ready to make some comments there. She says we're going on way too long tonight.
All right, well, with that then, we will move to our final piece, which is an executive session. This will be fairly short. My assumption is just about 15 minutes. And of course, if we need to, we'll come back on and extend. So we'll give folks a few minutes to clear out. Thank you so much for being here this evening. For the rude thing to say, sorry.
It's accurate.
How's your week going?
Busy.
Well, that PSA, you know, I took it 50 years ago.